Hello, I'm Karen Carpenter. Welcome to the very first program of Manatee 2020, which is an independent process of inquiry looking at educational practices and evidence-based standards, as well as ways to promote student learning and advance educational excellence. We ask why and how effective are the practices. Our format is a monthly panel discussion at METV Studios with panelists representing diverse interests, parents, administrators, citizens, and educators. Although we have a live audience to ask questions, numerous parents, teachers, and community members have submitted questions which will be posted online as part of the inquiry. Tonight's edition is on charter schools, which continues the Tiger Bay Club discussion of March 1st, but with two new panelists. Charter schools have become political darlings and playthings of wealthy individuals and large corporations. Are they just fads? Are they necessary or even effective? Are they creating a dual system of public education? I can guarantee that this will not be the last program we do on charter schools, as there is so much to discover and uncover. Charter schools are, like much of education, a work in progress. Let's meet our panel. First is Dr. Bill Jones, principal of the Manatee School for the Arts. It was in 1998 that Bill and his wife Una, along with the help of several others, opened Manatee School for the Arts, with 250 students in grades 6 and 7 in a bowling alley. In the fall of 2011, MSA opened with over 1,500 students in grades 6 through 12 in a greatly expanded facility. MSA is an A-rated school and is individually accredited by the same regional accrediting agency as the Manatee School District. In 2011, it was one of 8 schools and out of 500 charter schools to be given a Gold Seal School of Excellence Award by the Florida Consortium of Charter Schools. Furthermore, it is recognized by the state of Florida as a high-performing charter school. Welcome, Dr. Jones, and thank you for being here. Next, at the end of the table is Dr. W. Jack Crocker, who was appointed in 2009 as Vice President of Academic Quality and Success at State College of Florida by President Lars A. Hafner. Dr. Crocker is responsible for the collegiate school. He has been an instrumental part of the success and development of the collegiate school at SCF, oversees its major curriculum projects, and aligns overall goals and objectives of the little school with the big school. He is an expert on how the collegiate school merges with the goals and objectives of SCF in general and service to the community. Crocker is a published poet and writer whose newest book of poems is called The Last Resort. Welcome, Dr. Crocker. Thank you for being here. Finally, in the middle, we have Christine Fioretto-Skett, a dedicated advocate, full-time student and volunteer for students and public education with Fund Education Now. She's married and describes herself a mother of 3, with 2 children in the Manatee School District. Her fundraising for her children's school has resulted in $100,000 raised. Her goal is to advocate for the rights of children in Florida under the State of Florida Constitution, Article 9, Section 1, and to help parents become active in the democratic process. Welcome, Christine. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to ask each panelist now to take 5 minutes or so to focus on the key areas of your challenges around charter school experiences, the successes and your concerns, and then we will open the discussion up to the audience, who, if shy, need not worry, since I have over 20 questions that have been submitted by members of the community who could not be here with us. We'll post these questions and whatever answers we can get online. Dr. Jones, let's begin.
Well, thank you, Karen. I appreciate the invitation. It's a joy to be here. Well, my situation was that after about 20 years of a career as a senior administrator in higher education, primarily in medical education, my family came back to Manatee County, and we were looking around trying to decide what we wanted to do next. And I had encountered charter schools in the St. Paul area, where we were in the Twin Cities for about 8 years when charter schools first started. And I was sort of fascinated with the whole concept. My PhD's in the foundations of education at the University of Florida, and so I kind of kept up with these things. And when they passed the law here in Florida in 95, 96, I began to think that that might be very interesting. I was really motivated a lot by my own children who were singer, dancer, actors, and I was really distressed that Manatee County was not using the arts. And in fact, at that time, they were cutting the arts rather badly, trying to do some, obviously some budget cutting, that sort of thing. And forgive me, but having grown up here, our arch nemesis was always Sarasota at that time, and it kind of galled me that Sarasota had the foresight to develop the Booker VPA program, and Manatee County is cutting the arts. So I kind of spent some time, and I spent all of 1997 putting the application together, doing a lot of research and getting it ready. And in 1998, we went to the school board, got approved, and we opened Manatee School for the Arts in the fall of 1998. My whole purpose, quite frankly, in opening a charter school was to create opportunity for students in Manatee County, especially in the arts, because I was very distressed that there were many children who wanted to get involved, but there were not many opportunities in the public sector. If your parents could afford to send you to private lessons, you got them. If they couldn't, you didn't. And I didn't feel that that's really the way the arts should be in our society. So that was really a lot of my primary motivation. Like I said, having been a major administrator at both college and university level, I wasn't overwhelmed with the task of budgets and hiring and firing faculty and all those sorts of things. So we just plowed right in. What I really wasn't prepared for, honestly, was how much adversarial relation I would run into from the school board and from many folks in the community. I have to tell you, I was a little fascinated by that because, as an elderly gentleman now, I remember the 50s, 60s, and 70s when there was crisis in the classroom. Why can't Johnny read? Public education was under attack for many, 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 many years. And the reality is that it's in the late 80s that you see the concept of charter schools coming out as one of the answers to reform in education. And the idea was to create innovation, to distribute some of the authority and create opportunities. And so I was a little bit surprised when all of a sudden people were so circling the wagons and so protective of public education, which normally people complain about. But I also was very pleased that there was a huge level of support, particularly for our concept of using multiple intelligence and fusing the arts into education. Tremendous support from a lot of the staff at the school board and also from the classroom teachers who work day to day with kids and realize how effective these techniques are. And I don't want to get into a big, long, conversation about pedagogical theory and learning theory and all that, but let's just say that the approaches that we use are quite popular. They've been shown to be effective over and over again. And in fact, I always smile because every year that we do well, I get a phone call from the newspaper and they say, well, gosh, why do you think you guys did so well? And I kind of have to sit back and say, well, I told you this last year, that we approach it, and I do some of the educational theory, and it's like, okay, and you get the glazed look, and that's all there is to it. The reality is that our approach to education works very, very well. It's very effective. It's one of the reasons that MSA has been very effective academically. We've cut across the socioeconomic, the racial, ethnic, all of those issues I think are pretty well covered by our approach to education, and our performance pretty much speaks for itself. I mean, we're very much, if you look at our demographics, we're very much a middle of the road school. In fact, the truth of the matter is, and I hope this doesn't come as a great shock to anybody, but you can pretty well predict FCAT scores based on socioeconomic standing of the school itself. I mean, that's just the way it is, folks. And when you look at our school, our scores actually come out much higher than what would have been projected when you just look at our demographics. And we're pretty proud of that, quite honestly. You know, this is our 14th year. We've grown every year. I was a little shocked in the beginning that as many people were willing to trust us as they were, because, you know, I put out a little flyer that said, hey, we're thinking about opening a school over in Palmetto, and it might do this and it might do that. And I was flooded with inquiries. And we, you know, initially we had 250 kids. And the parents were very, very supportive. And I think what happened is we did tap in to a lot of folks who didn't feel that the public schools were addressing their needs, serving their children the way they wanted to be served. And I think they liked our approach. They were happy with it. And as someone said, you know, we're probably one of the best kept secrets in public education in Manatee County. And I think, again, the numbers speak for themselves. We've grown every year. And for the most part, I think that our parents and our students are pretty happy with how it works. We obviously have people for whom it does not work. It doesn't work well. Some people think they're coming to a snooty private school and they're in for a rude awakening, because that's not how it works at all. To get a little more general, one of the things that I always like to say, and I do lecture on this as an old professor, I do have a bad habit of lecturing, but I'm asked out to the college and other places to talk about charter schools. And one of the first things I always like to say is, the one thing I can tell you about all charter schools is everyone is different. There are really no two charter schools that are exactly the same. I mean, you can look at that, you know, even here in Manatee County, where one of the corporate charter schools has two schools in the county. One's in one part of the county, one's in another part, and they're very, very divergent in terms of their performance and all those sorts of things. So as we talk about charter schools, that would be something I would ask you to keep in mind. Be careful about generalizing. And it's like I say, I'm more than happy to sit up here and brag about our school because we've done so well. But at the same time, I would agree with some of our folks out there. There are charter schools that have not done such a fine job. And we're one of the first ones to say, close them. See, it's like a business, and charter schools to a great extent are a business. But we don't want those characters out there creating a bad image for the rest of us. So we're very supportive of maintaining and taking care of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
That's great. I have been to your school several times, and as I have been over to State College of Florida, I'd like to give Christine some opportunity to discuss the parents' perspective and the things you've seen and you've heard from your role with Fund Education now. I know you've had children at one of the arts magnet schools in the public schools. So let's have you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go to Jack over at State College of Florida.
Well, I definitely agree with choice. Choice is what it's what we need. And when we look at the different schools that we have included in our choice, we have Manatee School of the Arts and we have the State College of Florida Collegiate School, and they're both excellent schools, so you can't argue that. And it is unfortunate that when we look at the charter schools that are now starting to come out, they see that there's money to be made, and we're looking at corporations. My children were at a traditional public school in Manatee County. It was an excellent school. It was an A-rated school. An A is not what I was looking for. I was looking for a diverse setting. I was looking for the arts, specifically for the arts. So my children are at a magnet school in the public school system, just as a charter school is in the public school system. However, we are still under the complete control of the Manatee County School District. And in the fundraising, I alone did not raise $100,000. It was many parents. But we as parents, we understand that in order to keep the arts in our schools, we do need to keep raising money. And the arts, unfortunately, are the first to be cut. So when Fund Education Now, when we look at what we're cutting from our schools, we look to educating to the whole child, not to a state standard, a state test. And unfortunately, public schools are becoming the state standard driven. If you're in a public school, you're going to teach to the test. And that's something that we cannot allow. It does not teach to the whole child. It completely violates our Constitution. A high quality does not mean an A on the FCAT. It's just not the way that it works. And that's something that we need to get out to parents. We also need parents to understand when you switch schools and when you choose any type of charter school, whether it be a charter school that offers the arts or a charter school that offers a college track, we need to make sure that parents know who manages these schools. Who do they go to if there's a problem? Who sets the policies? Do they have a voice? Is there a parent organization that can adjust policy? When you look at the public school, I mean, sometimes it's hard, but we can go to our school board meetings. We have people that we can go to and speak. We can meet with the superintendent, and we can ask for changes. And a lot of times we get them. In the private school, you're paying, so they kind of have to listen to your money. And parents have also found that in the public school, well, we're going to start raising our own funds so we can start dictating, well, we would really like to have a strings program, or we would really like to have chess club, a science program. And so parents have been kind of leading the way in that. And at Fund Education Now, we believe that parents should not be having to do that, because then only the schools that can afford those services to pay for them are actually getting a complete education. So when we look at public dollars, we have to go back to the Constitution and say, are all children being included? And all children means low socioeconomics, and then we have to look at students with disabilities. And that's something that is often overlooked. So are students with disabilities being included? Are they being penalized if they can't hold up to a certain standard? And those are things that we also need to look at when we're looking at where our tax dollars are being spent. I agree, we need choice. If we didn't have choice, then schools could run however they wanted. But we need choice that's responsible.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know we'll have more to say about both the parent trigger and the test revolt in Texas. Dr. Crocker, could you speak about your school and the goals there, and how you're responding to parents and the public?
Karen, thanks for the opportunity to talk about our collegiate school. It's an interesting concept. My background is almost entirely university, and when I came to State College of Florida, President Hafner started talking about a charter school, collegiate school, and I was familiar with some other colleges that had collegiate schools on the campus, and I found out that Dr. Hafner's experience in the legislature was part of the idea for this. He was chair of one of the education committees when he was in the House, and he kept hearing about middle school and the paths either are successful or unsuccessful by the time of middle school. So he was very interested in investigating starting a collegiate school, but also starting with a middle school on the campus. And as far as we know, no one had done that, certainly not in Florida. All of the collegiate schools that are on the other college campuses are 10th through 12th. They're high schools. And so the idea of having 6th and 7th graders on the college campus was not taken lightly. And from that initial idea, we said, well, where are the best models? What can we look at? And Lars knows Jeb Bush, although they were different parties, they still speak to each other. And so we contacted Jeb and said, you know, with all of your work in schools, where would you say is the best system that you have seen lately for, doesn't have to be a charter school, just a school system that's middle school and up. And Jeb mentioned a school that happens to be a private corporation, but it was in Sweden. And so he put us in touch with the people who run the school. We were able to investigate. We visited there. We looked at what they were doing. And they pretty much agreed for us to adapt their model. They had 15 years of data that show how successful they had been. And they are open access. They have to take all students in the Swedish model. And so we came back. This was like in January, and we wanted to start this in the fall. So we put the proposal together, and I have to say that we had really excellent help from the Manatee School District. They ask all the right questions, and as you might expect, the first one, security. You're going to have middle school students on a college campus. How are you going to be sure that they are safe? So the questions and the challenges certainly helped us fine-tune and hone the model that we were working on. And as we put it in place, to oversimplify, it's very much an individualized instruction approach, self-paced approach. The students are not kept in rows of seats. Those who are advanced are free to work on their own. We also wanted to emphasize technology. So every student coming in with we opened with the 6th and 7th grade, and I think Bill did too with his school. Mm-hmm. Every student has an iPad. That was right before the iPads came out. Apple heard what we were doing and invited us out to Cupertino to meet with them to talk about the concept that we had and how Apple technology could play into this. And as a result, we were able to get an agreement through Apple for the iPads that were coming. But we stressed that the technology is a tool. It is not. It's a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. And our faculty have been extremely innovative in beginning to tie the technology to the instruction. Another characteristic was that students have to set goals. And those goals are monitored every week. And the goal setting is also done in conjunction with the parents. So twice a year, the students actually and the teachers meet with the parents to say, these are the goals that your student is identifying. We get the parent input. And so it is a goal setting process, but the emphasis on that is that students, and this is a transformational issue with students because they were not used to having one, to think what their goals are, and the other is that it began to put more of the responsibility for learning on the students.
That's right.
And so the idea that the students have to take some ownership in their own learning became a foundational premise for what we're doing. And then actually the teachers, and we quickly learned, as all of us know, it's the teacher who makes it work. Systems do not teach. Models do not teach. Teachers teach. And so we had to find teachers who were willing to think outside the box, to look at what we were doing, because our teachers are more coaches and mentors than they are teachers. They obviously have subject matter expertise, and we have to cover those major subjects. But each of our teachers has a mentoring role. Each one has 22 students assigned to them. They meet with those students each day. And it's primarily to see, did you achieve your goals today? Are you on track? So it's a way to individualize instruction, but to give dedicated teacher time to those students. And I might, there'll be questions. I was going to conclude that even to the point with the Swedish model, that one of the interesting things, they mostly refurbished old industrial buildings for their schools. They didn't build new schools, and they had this very interesting architect who designed their schools. And so we showed them. We had an old tech building on campus that was no longer. All of the programs that had been there had been outdated through technology. So that was the building that we wanted to retrofit into the middle school and the collegiate school. And the Swedish architect actually looks at our plans. He hates rectangles. He hates boxes. And he hates doors. So if you come to our school, and I think, Karen, you'd visited before, you won't see any enclosed classrooms. The walls are all at angles. Color is very important. We also have, we named them think tanks. They are small seminar rooms with all glass so that teachers can see what's going on. But if students want to break into small groups, or if a teacher wants a small group to take on some project, they don't have to stay in the classroom. They go into one of the think tanks, and they have their iPads. They have all of the instructional technology in there. So they can work independently and individually. So we see even the architecture became part of the learning process, and the idea that every space is a learning space within the school. So we have been on a fast track. We opened within a year. We hired the teachers. We've been extremely fortunate to get teachers that have bought into our concept and actually have taken it further. The curriculum is very much built on a step system, so that as I set my goals, if I reach these steps, I can keep going as long as I perform on the mastery test. So I'm not held back with the middle performing students in a single class. I can actually move at my own pace. And that was an attempt to try to break down some of those boundaries of class boundaries that are kind of artificial. Lastly, as a collegiate school, our students, once they reach the 11th grade, will enter our regular college classes. So they will, upon graduation, receive a high school diploma and at the same time an AA degree. So these students will have knocked 2 years off of their education that parents don't have to pay tuition for. And with the AA degree, that obviously opens them up to the whole university system. But to top that off, and this was kind of the frosting on the cake, Florida Gulf Coast University became interested. President Bradshaw is a first-generation student himself. And he was interested because one of our goals was to get as many first-generation students as we could. By first-generation, we mean that neither parent had a college degree. And right now, out of 190-something students, 63% of those students are first-generation students. So the opportunity to come from probably a goal that they saw as fairly difficult to be put on a college campus where their only goal is to get a college degree. Well, President Bradshaw said, what if we offered every graduate of your collegiate school a full ride scholarship for a baccalaureate degree at FGCU? We said, we'll take it. And so we do have that agreement now that a student who graduates from our collegiate school can enter Florida Gulf Coast University with a full ride scholarship. So essentially you can start with us at the 6th grade and get a baccalaureate degree almost free of charge. And by the way, our first year we were an A school.
Thank you very much. It's obvious that we have two very high quality schools here in Manatee County with MSA and the collegiate school that really benefits the children here, and I thank you both for that. We have some time for questions, and I wonder what there might be from the audience.
Hi, I'm Rosalie Schaefer, and before I pass the mic around, I thought I'd get my own question in. The legislature had a number of bills that affect education this session. One of them was referred to as the parental trigger bill, which Ms. Carpenter mentioned. And it's the bill would provide for the ability for parents of a poorly performing school to automatically begin the process of turning it into a charter school. And I was wondering, Dr. Jones, do the charter schools support that bill? And the other panelists, what damage do you see to the public education system if it had prevailed? And what should be done with schools that are persistently underperforming?
Well, you asked the question, do the charter schools support that bill? I think that's a mixed bag. I had very mixed feelings about that because I thought there should have been, if we were going to have a bill like that, I think there should have been more options. I wasn't comfortable with shutting school down, turning it into a charter school, particularly because they had the provision that once it became a charter school, then the parents could no longer have any more say in that. And that bothered me a little bit. I think, again, everybody who's paying attention out there, and I'm sure you have come to the same conclusion yourself, it tends to be the corporate charter schools that were behind this. I mean, the fundamental concept of the trigger bill, I think, is a good idea. You know, it gives the parents more input, it empowers them, but I was just a little uncomfortable stopping at, okay, you can have input as long as you want to turn it into a charter school. Might there be some other options that we could take a look at there? So I think there was a mixed bag.
And Rosalie's, the two other parts of Rosalie's question?
I can help out a little bit there. That was a bill that we worked very hard to defeat. It was very hard. And what we would like to see is the SAC committee, it's the School Advisory Committee or Council Committee, that parents sit on. It's a governing board of the schools. However, many schools in many school districts do not utilize that board the way it should be. And in saying that, the SAC chair is to run the meeting, the SAC chair is to set the agenda. Parents in the school can bring issues before that governing board and decisions can be made and taken. It's part of our school improvement plan. So if our school is operating poorly, then the school improvement plan needs to be taken over by the school's governing council. So what we wanted to see was, we already have rules in place that allow for removal of a principal. We already have rules in place that allow for our school to take a different direction. However, it's not being enforced. So as a parent group, and we also had the PTA, the Florida PTA joined us, numerous groups. We represented over 500,000 parents. And what we looked at was they're really not looking to give us more power, because if they wanted to, they could do it by enforcing the SAC. What they wanted to do was to let us say we've had enough and pull the trigger on the school, allow it to be shut down, and then hand it over to a corporate charter school. And I'm going to take it one step further than where you had. Parents no longer had a say after that. The schools were under no obligation to perform any differently. There was no default language in that bill at all that those charter schools needed to do anything different, that they needed to improve scores. They just were given a free school.
Dr. Crocker, do you want to comment on all of this, the parent empowerment piece?
First of all, let me emphasize that we are a public school, even though
Correct.
it says charter, that we are a public school. I can't speak for the Florida college system or necessarily for SCF, but personally it seems to me that would be a great disruption, unnecessary disruption in education. And there are enough disruptions already, and I think Christine hit a lot of the major points there. Is there a guarantee that someone taking over the school is going to improve it, or what are going to be the benchmarks? We had some meetings with you may be familiar, New York City has been doing a lot of in their iZone, innovative zones, have been willing to try out a lot of different things within their schools. And we had visit from one of the leaders in that movement to come see what we were doing at State College of Florida. And some really good discussions, because what they were trying to do was to salvage schools that were consistently low performing, but they were trying to do it with, I think, what Christine was talking about. Why not give some freedom to try some innovative things? And to me, it's an irony that the charter school idea, supposedly, and I think Bill mentioned this, was to free up schools to be innovative and creative. And yet, when you add on all of the bureaucratic requirements that are there, it begins to simply tie the hands of teachers, especially in the public schools. So this seemed to be a bill that had not met its time.
Well, it was a 2020 vote, so we're keeping an eye on it. And I know Fund Education Now, and the rest of us will be. Peggy, did you have a question?
Charter school proponents claim they can do a better job. The Frito report disputes this, except in early elementary education, where impoverished children do slightly better than their match in traditional schools. My question is it realistic that beyond these early years, will the improvement continue without improvement in the socioeconomic factors affecting a child's life and impacting the classroom? Is a comprehensive program lifting up the parents necessary to lift up the children?
Wow, that's a great question. Would someone like to take that one on?
Sure. Part of the problem is we have so many studies out here now, and unfortunately it has become so political and politicized that it's sometimes hard to tease out the reality, because these things are coming out from, even some of the big universities have taken sides. And so I read all this stuff, and I try to kind of get in the middle of it. I am convinced that there are some charter schools out there that are doing marvelous things. I'm also convinced that there are some regular public schools out there that are doing marvelous things. And it's go back to my first comment. You know, every charter school is different, so that when you try to do a statistical analysis, it's very, very difficult to do that, because it's very difficult to lump schools together based on the services, their approach, and these sorts of things. And I see these studies trying to do this all the time. You know, your question about will the initial effects maintain? I think in some cases they will. In other cases they won't. Again, it depends on the circumstances. You know, one of the things that I have mixed emotions about, for example, here in Manatee County, when I grew up here, you went to a particular elementary school, and then you went to a particular junior high school, then you went to a high school. And one of the things that did was to create a cohort. In other words, you had a group of friends that you grew up with, you went to school, you knew who they were. You know, here's an audience member sitting out there I went to second grade with. You know, we're not chums, but, you know, we say hello and all that sort of thing. And today, that's not much of an issue. And so I think that has a, you know, on one regard, I think it has a negative impact because it doesn't create the kind of social connections that we used to have. On the other side, you can argue that there's better diversity, you know, better mix and all that. So, you know, which way do you go? I'd be happy to have a conversation with you because I have some very strong feelings about some of those charter schools that are very effective. And I think a lot of it has to do with the setting they're in, the desperation of the parents and the children, and the lack of choice. I mean, let's face it, when you're stuck in an inner city setting and you really don't have a lot of choice, you've got either the charter school, which quite frankly, some of these charter schools are almost draconian in their approach to education. You'll be there from 8 in the morning till 5, 6 days a week. The parents will commit, you know, and you'll make eye contact. It's very, very strict. But the thing is, are you motivated? And I think that, for example, here in Manatee County, I've always joked, can you imagine if we were a real tough school, people would go, yeah, I think I'm going to King, okay? See you later. So I think that you have to look at circumstances. Very different in a state like Florida, where you do have a lot of choice, you have a lot of opportunities. And I think there are times when, I don't want to say it plays against us, but it creates some loopholes where parents can get away from excellence and being diligent and all that. They kind of, that didn't sound good, did it? I apologize. No, but you know what I'm saying.
Is it the school's responsibility to educate the parents? Because I hear some of that in Peggy's question, you know?
Yes.
You know, we have parents who can't read, who don't read, who have limited abilities, and, you know, that kind of constrains the potential for children's success.
The adult education programs this year?
I believe, yeah, there's, well, first of all, and this isn't really education, but it is education because our school at Rowlett, we focus on the 7 habits, the Stephen Covey series. And my children come home every day with a power up your habit. And I'll tell you what, there's days that I've been really upset, and there's one habit where you have a button here and you push the button and you stop. And then you think about what was just said to you, and then you think about what your response should be, and then you have to go back to another habit that is seek first to understand before being understood. And I didn't know that before. I mean, I knew the concept, but I really never put it into practice like I did when my sons are walking around the house, you know, oh. So I think that a lot of times when we teach when children learn something at school and then they're encouraged to bring it home to their parents, I think that they're going to learn by that too. So I do think that we need to encourage parental involvement, and there are a lot of schools, public and charter schools, that do not want or do not encourage the parental involvement. So bringing the parents into the discussion of anything is going to educate the parents. And then taking it a step further, I'm very much for parents getting parenting help. I think that I have children that have some special needs, and there are times that I know I needed help in dealing with, well, how do I handle this? And, so it's not offered, well, it is offered through our school system. I know that our ESE programs, they offer parenting education. But if we're talking about reading and writing, I think we need that. Our school does a math night, and it's a math night to teach parents the curriculum, kind of, and where do you go, and how can you work with your child on math homework. And they've changed all the words in math. I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but I some days just look at my son like, I've never heard of this, and then I'll Google it like, is there something wrong with me? And then I pull it up, and it's that they've just changed the words. So I think that schools, public or charter, are obligated to work with the parents.
There was a bill introduced this year in the legislature. It died in committee because there was so much going on. But it was designed to offer charter adult education programs designed to work in conjunction so that the parents and the children would be going basically to similar facilities and sharing and that sort of thing. So it kind of goes along with what you're talking about. I'm afraid that it got lost in the discussion, quite honestly. I don't think they ever got to it. But
I think consistently all the research shows that the single most important factor in success is motivation. The students, one of them, and certainly socioeconomic levels have something to do with that. But I think there is kind of a mindset that merely by privatizing a school somehow that's a magic elixir. We're still dealing with human children, not gadgets and products. At our school, at the collegiate school at SCF, certainly we have the SAC, we have consistent parent involvement, but we also, each week, our teachers do evaluative statements about where the students are, and every parent can actually access their students' records daily through our learning management system. So they can go into, using their computer, they can go into our system and see how their child is performing. Are they meeting their goals? So it is, they don't have to come to school. They don't have to, although they do, and they don't have to have meetings with the teacher, which they do, but they can consistently go in and check how the students are doing through the technology.
That's great. We have time for one more question, and then I have to ask each of our panelists to do a wrap-up. The hour has gone very quickly with some rich discussion. Thank you. Mr. Miner?
Yes, thank you. My question is really directed to Dr. Jones and Dr. Crawford, but if Christine wants to jump in too. As you, Dr. Jones earlier said, every charter school is different. But I think we'd all agree that charter schools are also the same in terms of they are receiving taxpayer money. That is a common factor. Last fall, Richard Milburn Charter School was closed down by our school board. There was about 100 students there. And the reason was that the prior year, it appeared that education wasn't being provided to their students. This is money, taxpayers' money, that sort of went down the drain in students who did not receive education that was intended. We're talking maybe up to $1 million of taxpayer money that was, in a sense, wasted. There hasn't been, to my knowledge, any kind of recompensation by the owners of that school. There hasn't been any compensation to the students who missed out on that education, which brings us to the topic of how can we provide some better guarantee of quality, minimum quality to our parents, guarantee of minimum quality to taxpayers, that money going to charter schools is well spent. And I'd like to ask Dr. Jones and Dr. Crawford for their suggestions about how the school district of Manatee County might do a better job in ensuring, or at least this minimum quality that certainly wasn't present with respect to the school that was closed last fall. Thank you.
I don't want to steal all the time, but Dave, I absolutely agree with you. And it's been very peculiar. For example, we give a monthly financial statement to the school board. I mean, it's a complete statement of everything. And strangely enough, all over the state, there's been a hue and cry from the school districts, no, we only don't want to do this quarterly. And I think one of the problems has been that only a handful of the school districts have taken the oversight responsibility as seriously as they need to. They don't want to invest in the personnel. For example, I think it's Broward County that like Dr. Verdia Bradley here, her counterpart down there has her own accounting group who actually go through every month and look at these financial statements. See, one of the problems was that when you were looking at a statement every quarter, well, you know how it goes. If you get it in, and then if you wait 30 days or 60 days, and then you look at it and you go, oh, there's something wrong here.
It's called slip away.
Yeah.
We're going to run out of wrap-up time.
Okay,
so, sorry,
so
but that's
I
a good
would say
suggestion.
One of the biggest things is we actually need better supervision by the sponsors, if you will. Yeah.
So I'm going to let Dr. Crocker go into his wrap-up time, and if you have any comments in response to Mr. Miner's question about oversight, I'll give you an extra minute.
Sure, but I think this has been very, very helpful, and I hope informative for the audience. I think we see that education is in a fairly tumultuous time and a transformational time. If I'm a teacher, and I am in college, university, but in the schools, I'm not a basher of teachers. And to make it a little bit of an extreme statement, but when I'm being accused of being the reason for the downfall of Western civilization, that doesn't help my morale. And I think that in our instance, we have seen that if you give teachers the creative flexibility to do what they are committed to do, then you get the kind of success that we've gotten with our collegiate school. And I give all of that credit to our teachers.
Thank you. Christine, you've got about a minute and a half.
The biggest thing that I think that we need to see in schools is the doors open for parental involvement. And I'm not talking about just parties. I'm talking about parents really being involved, seeing all the test scores, not seeing the children's names. And I'm not talking about FCAT test scores. I'd like to see some national rankings put in there so that we can really see where our students, where our children are, and then see what needs to be done. It would be, I think, the best practice to utilize our SACs the way that they're intended across the state, and that we would see an improvement.
Thank you. You've got a minute and a half.
Okay.
Dr. Jones?
One, I'd like to say I do believe that charter schools are here to stay. I think they have proven themselves to the extent that they deserve to be here. Do we need to weed out some characters? Absolutely. The whole issue of the for-profit corporate charter schools, I think, raises many, many questions. We need to answer those. Frankly, I do not support using public tax monies to go to these companies to buy capital. I was very opposed to that. Our school, for example, follows the law. We have a reversion clause. If we were shut down or anything like that, everything that we've bought with public money goes back to the school district. It's very clear. We accepted that, and I think that's the way it should work.
Thank you very much, Bill. So where do we go from here? When do we have another discussion on charter schools, and whom do we invite? Legislators? Policymakers? taxpayers. It would be nice to inform those crafting the legislation about the challenges and experiences of those on the ground. Thank you to all of my guests, audience members, and METV, and to the League of Women Voters. Thank you for watching this edition of Manatee 2020. I'm Karen Carpenter.